Hi there, I'm Craig, and I'm a developer. In this course, we're going to explore the wonderful world of webhooks. Understanding the concepts behind webhooks will open up a new and powerful world of possibilities for your projects and your applications. There are infinite opportunities available for you to connect applications that you know and love together to create new experiences for both you and your users. Now, in order for you to get the most out of this course, I'd love it if you had a basic understanding of how to access web-based APIs. Now, if you don't yet, no worries. I've attached to this video some teacher's notes. I've listed some ways for you to gain that experience there. Now, even if you've already met the prerequisites, can you please take a minute and locate the teacher's notes? Throughout the course, I'm going to refer to them. In those notes, I'll drop additional information and share places where you can learn more about what we're chatting about. I'll also use those notes to keep you updated on anything that might have changed from my right now when I'm filming this course to your right now whenever you're watching this in the future. I hope things are going good for you in the future. But while we're talking about your future, let's chat a bit about what you can expect from this course. We're going to first talk about the high-level concepts of webhooks, where they come from, when and why you might want to use them, and I'll walk you through some inspiring solutions that you can build without writing any code whatsoever. You're going to love it. Pretty sure you're going to get hooked. And after you get webhooked, we'll move from a no-code solution to explore some more low-code solutions. We're going to explore events that GitHub sends out when activity happens on their site. Now, no worries if you haven't had any previous experience with the code-sharing site GitHub. We'll start from the very beginning and get you up and running quickly. We'll also then spin up a serverless function using a free platform named Netlify, and we'll handle, or do something with, the event data that comes from GitHub. If you haven't used serverless technology before, again, don't fret. We'll walk through what that means and how to take advantage of its power. Now, all the code in this course we'll walk through together. You'll have access to all of the completed code. After we've got a good grasp on the basics, we'll make use of webhooks to build an entire telephone-based application. We'll build from start to finish an entire idea capturing and text transcription service. The application will lean completely on webhooks for workflow management, all done with shockingly few lines of code. This course is going to deal with consuming events passed to our webhooks. Now, that is to say, we won't be writing code that sends information to registered webhooks. Check the teacher's notes if you're interested in learning more about how to send webhook events. I am super excited to get started with this course. But there's just one more thing that I'd like to talk about with future you. If at any time you need me to pause or slow down, remember, you're in a video-based course. Take advantage of that. I am more than happy to repeat myself if you miss something.
Speed me up.
Slow me down.
Flip on the closed captions. Make yourself at home. These days, I know I've gotten pretty bad about the way that I consume video content. I just watch, and then I watch some more. Well, it turns out that education doesn't really work too well with binging like that. If you feel like you're starting to zone out, like I did through the endless seasons of Survivor, it's time for a break. And I'm not here to make friends. I've put some deliberate stopping points in this course, and I'll do my best to remind you to take a break. Breaks are important. They're super critical for your learning. You need to let things sink in, and I want you to get the most out of our time together. Whew! There we go. We got all that housekeeping stuff all covered. I'm sure you were starting to get like my kids do on a long drive when they're like, "Dad, are we there yet?" Actually, that's a pretty good example for where a webhook works wonderfully. My kids continually ask me that question over and over again. Are we there yet? They keep making that request, the same one, over and over, polling me directly to see if we've arrived at our destination. Now, typically, my response is, I'll tell you when we get there. More or less, what I'm promising is that when we get there, I will broadcast our arrival status. And when that approach works, like when my kids actually decide to subscribe to my status updates, I can tell you that it makes things a lot easier on the whole car. I don't get overloaded and they can relax. They just sit there and wait for my update. So much more efficient. So I guess what I'm attempting to broadcast to you now is, we're here. We've arrived at the start of the course. Now, I think the best place to start our journey is to explore a concept often present in application development: events. Let's get started. An event in code is a defined action or occurrence. Now, these events are typically exposed to us software developers so that we can write code that runs specifically when one of these actions or occurrences happen. The first type of event that I'd like to talk about is one that is caused by the user of your application. Let's think about a button on a web page. This button will trigger an event when it is clicked by a user. You can optionally write some code that will run and only run when that event occurs. You do this by adding or registering what is known as an event listener. You write code, also referred to as a handler, used to handle the specific event. In this case, click. This code will only run when that event happens. This is called event-driven programming. In this example, it's used to empower you to not have to write code that continually checks to see if the button is being pressed. Just like the kids in the car, it isn't very efficient for you to write code asking, "Hey button, are you clicked yet? Are you clicked yet? Now? How about now? Are you clicked?" The click event is just one of many events that web pages allow for listening to. Check the teacher's notes for more browser-based event examples. Similar in concept to a user-generated event is what is known as a lifecycle event. Lifecycle events are typically exposed to us via application libraries or frameworks. You can think of application libraries and frameworks as tools that help us rapidly develop our applications. These libraries do this by providing repeatable ways for us to write our applications. For example, these libraries allow us developers to customize various parts of the application at specific times in specific contexts. They allow us to hook into specific lifecycle events. For instance, when you're building a web application these days, you're almost certainly using a front-end application library. One of the main benefits that these libraries give you is the ability to write code for only your specific needs. A great example is you can write code once your component has been loaded on the screen. This load is a lifecycle event. Usually, this looks something like has been loaded. What's happening here is what is known as inversion of control. Now, this is because the control is being handed to you, the developer, from the application at exactly the right time. The library does its magic. It prepares your component. It then renders it out to the screen. And when it's loaded on the page, it calls the code that you wired up to your has been loaded hook. And that abstraction is super nice. You don't call the function yourself. The library actually calls your function when it's ready. This inversion of control pattern is also often referred to as the Hollywood principle. In Hollywood, casting directors usually tell the person auditioning, "Don't call us, we'll call you." Now, this is because if they didn't, the actor would just keep calling them. Yeah, I was just in there auditioning. I'm pretty sure I got the part. I did really good. Weird, they hung up. I guess I'll call back. No, I was the older guy. I was just wondering, when should I come in for my wardrobe fitting? Hello? Weird, they disconnected. Guess I'll try that again. Again, like my kids, these actors are totally going to overload these directors with their needy questions. If they were allowed to call the director and check for their approval, they'd do it all the time. That Hollywood principle abstraction allows the actor to not need to understand the entire process that Hollywood directors are going through. The directors do whatever it is that directors do. I think it involves tall chairs and megaphones and snacks. Definitely snacks. The point is, only when the directors make their decision do they call to inform the actor. These patterns of event handlers and lifecycle hooks have really proven useful in helping developers to build extensible applications. And the good news is that this powerful abstraction can also span across entirely different applications over the internet by using what is known as, ta-da, a webhook. Now that we've got a light understanding of the basics of event handlers and hooks, let's run through a quick refresher of how to use an API. Have you heard of IoT, the Internet of Things? Well, this here is a thing. Well, not this adorable / weird dog lamp thing, but the actual light bulb itself. It's what is known as a smart bulb. Now, I've got an app on my phone which lets me turn on the light. Pretty cool, right? I mean, don't get me wrong. A plain old light bulb is pretty amazing when you think about it. When I turn on the light switch, it allows power to come to the bulb and it lights up. That's cool, but that's me doing it. I'm turning it on. And in reality, it's not much different with me using an application on my phone, is it? I'm telling it to turn on. I can also even change the color, but even that, I'm saying to make the light green, and I'm telling it to do it when I click. Now, what makes these light bulbs really shine? That's a dad joke. I intended to do that. Sorry about that one. But what makes these light bulbs really smart is that they can be controlled by external events. Like, for instance, I can make it so the bulb turns on at sundown. I can even set up a schedule so that it gets darker the closer it comes to my bedtime, making me feel sleepier because my lights are outsmarting me. In fact, you've probably seen it. There's a whole industry around smart homes. So many products, all sorts, revolving around the house being smarter than what's going on around it. Now, the industry saw incredible growth over the past couple of years. Now, the way this particular light bulb works is that I define a schedule of how I want it to behave. The light bulb isn't sitting there asking my schedule over and over again if it's time to turn on. There's an external program that's running, and when my defined time occurs, it sends the request to the bulb to turn on. It's almost as if the sun said to my light bulb, "Don't call us, kid, we'll call you." At sunset, turn on the lights. And it does just like I did when I clicked my phone. It sends the same message to the light bulb to turn on. And in fact, in this particular example, it quite literally is as if I did it using the phone. This light bulb is actually connected to the internet with an exposed API. I can control it via an API from my computer here. So this here is Postman. If you haven't seen this tool before, you should totally check it out. I absolutely love it for exploring APIs. Now, the API that I'm exploring here is from LifeX, or LifeX, the company that produces my light bulb. Now, you'll see here that I can change the values, and you'll notice here that it's a put. Puts can be used to explain changing a particular property of the resource and not replacing all of them. In this case, I'm going to send a put request. So I'm going to send a put request to my light. This API uses a bearer token to authenticate, and I've got that all set up. And you can see here that I am changing the color to red. Now, I'm going to send a put request to this specific bulb. So I'm going to click this here, and boom, it's red. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? I can use this code to turn this light off and on. And we already know that just letting this light turn off and on with regards to the sun has made it labeled smart. When the sun goes down, turn on. Sure, that's pretty smart. But I bet us being able to control it via code might make this thing labeled a genius. I mean, if you think about it, it's like when anything, like anything at all that I can dream up happens, turn it on. Even better, we saw that we can change the color. I can make this turn green when I have a new email, or flash different colors when someone comments on a YouTube video. Or I'm sure if I was into sports, I bet I would love if this blinked my team's colors when they scored a point. Go team, sports! What if I used this for an on-air light for like when I was in a video conference? So my kids knew not to come barging in on my call. They'd see this Rudolph the Red-Nosed Dog lamp thing was on, and they'd know that I was on a call. And when it was done, I could turn it off. Genius, I tell you. Genius. Now, whoa, I actually need that like right now. But wait a second. Would that mean that I'd have to write a program that just sat there and checked all those situations, like keep checking the sports scores and keep checking my email inbox? Like for that video call example, if I think about it, what it feels like to me is that I'd have to write some code to continually check and see if I was on a video call. And that doesn't feel very efficient at all, does it? In fact, that feels an awful lot like my kids asking if we were there yet. Ooh, but what if a video call starting was considered an event? And what if I was able to write some code to handle that video call started event? I'd be able to, in that handling code, turn on the light, just like we did in the code. I guess that would mean I'd have to write some sort of plugin for my video conferencing software if I wanted to share it. I'd like have to have everybody in the world install some software if they wanted to use it. Yuck. Wouldn't it be nice if somehow that event could trigger outside of the application to anyone, like over the internet? This, my friend, is where webhooks come into play. chances are your video conferencing provider allows you to listen and handle events using webhooks. That solution basically already exists. We'll look at webhooks like that one here in a bit. But do you see how if that event was sent across the internet, I wouldn't need to write code to continually poll to see if I was in a meeting. I could just wait for the video conference started notification. Now, my video conferencing provider says, don't call me, kid, I'll call you. And our handler just says, turn on the light. And it only runs when our provider says, psst, hey, kid, a video conference started. Now, I hope that you just had one of those light bulb moments. And I mean that quite literally and figuratively, like the type above your head. I hope that thing just turned on. I'd like to ask you to take a little break now. I'd like this to sink in for you. And one way to help this all make sense is for you to pause the video and think about what we just saw. Can I get you to come up with 3 ideas of what you might want to do if you owned this smart bulb? Everyone has different needs. And remember, quite literally anything could trigger it, could make it change colors. Now, if you're having trouble coming up with ideas, check the notes. So really, I want you to let your mind wander. What would you like to have happen to make this light turn on? It could be literally anything you can dream up. So let's take a break, and when you come back, I'll share some tools that will give you a lot of inspiration. I'm thinking you'll be pleasantly surprised. You might even be able to achieve what you dreamed up with just a couple of clicks. See you in a bit. Before the break, I asked you to come up with some ideas to make this smart light bulb even smarter. How'd it go? Did ideas just flow out of your mind? Sometimes I find that when I'm told to dream up anything at all, suddenly I can't. I have ideas pop in my mind all the time, but the second you ask me to come up with one like right on the spot, my mind goes blank. And that's a bummer, especially when you're trying to learn a new technology you want to put into practice, but you have no real idea where to start. So if that just happened to you, no worries. I kind of expected it would happen. And I've got a solution for that lack of ideas problem, and we'll get to that here in a second. To get there first, though, let's talk about a growing movement called no code. Don't worry, it's not a movement to abolish coders. No code is the concept that you can, and often should, build applications without actually writing any code. You're given building blocks and you snap them together. The concept is that the applications we build are similar enough that they can be broken down into reusable parts and snapped together into new formations to build new applications. It's wonderful for prototyping, and frankly, sometimes you can build exactly what you were trying to do without writing a single line of code, like no code at all. And I'm talking about some super impressive stuff. E-commerce sites and integrations with third-party APIs. Check the notes if you're interested in diving deeper into this. One of my favorite no-code sites has been around for a long time, even before the no-code movement took off. It's called IFTTT, which stands for If This, Then That. It's a no-code solution for exactly what we've been leading up to. It's an event handler for the internet. If this happens, then do something. And there are a smattering of options that they call services. These are services that expose events that can happen. And there are a bunch of them, from your location changed, to it's snowing, to the sun is setting. You'll also notice that there are other services here that are web specific. There's an email service that exposes events like new email received. So you define the service that you want to use and you choose the specific event. If this, and now, you choose what happens when that event occurs. Then that. These are called service actions, and there are a different set of services here that allow you to do different things. So, for instance, the company that makes this light bulb I was using was called Lifx, or LIFX, and they provide an action service, and it exposes a bunch of things that I can do with my light bulb, like change the color. And because I've linked my accounts already, I can choose which of my light bulbs, what color, and many other things. And combining the service with an action, like a whole if this, then that combo, is called an applet. Cool, right? So I'm pretty sure that you could build a couple of applets to create your own ideas with just a couple of clicks, and definitely no code. I think that this hashtag no code movement might be onto something. It's hashtag no joke. But now though, what about the situation that we had where you didn't have an idea? Well, this is awesome, and this is a developer hack that keeps on giving. Sample applications are a wonderful way to get inspired. And guess what? These applets are shareable. In fact, if you go up here to Explore, you'll get suggestions, but you can also type what you're looking for. So I asked you to come up with ideas about lights. So let's type that, lights. So let's see all the applets surrounding lights. So here we have toggle lights, blink your lights, that's nice. Disco party for hue lights, that's wonderful. Alexa, turn on the lights. Sorry if I just triggered your Alexa at home if you have one. Turn on my lights, blink when your doorbell rings. These are great. All sorts of things. Now I can enable one of these for my own account, and when it comes up, it asks for my specific configuration. Now you probably noticed that there were different types of smart bulbs in that list. But that doesn't mean that you can't take that idea and make it work for your own use case. Do you see the power in that? Now, this is actually a pretty common pattern in developing software. You take the base code and you make a copy of it and you make your changes. This is called forking. You fork your new copy. And remember, this is just one of many no-code automation tools. If you're enjoying this way of thinking, I encourage you to look at Zapier. They provide similar building blocks to the complete same sort of if this happens, then do that. You wire up services to create what they call zaps. It's super fun, and I highly recommend exploring here too. There are lots of inspiring ideas to be found. Zapier makes you happier. I just love that. These no-code automation tools go a long way in making just about anything possible. But, as you can imagine, there are going to be cases where you're going to want to have more control. You're going to want to write some specific code that the action doesn't provide. I'm pretty sure that's why you're here, in fact. You want to use a webhook. So let's do that. Let's explore how that works right after a quick break. I'd love to give you some more time to explore these no-code tools. And I really want you to think about these applets or zaps as an abstraction of the power of webhooks. Oh, one thing that might help, if you want to just play around with some actions, there's a smartphone app, and it lets you install buttons on your home screen, just like this. Like, look here. I've wired it up an IFTTT button so that when I click it, it turns on the red light. That way Roxanne doesn't have to do it. That was a bad one. Don't call the joke police on me. Hope that one didn't sting too much. Check the teacher's notes for more exploration guidance. And please let me know what you come up with. See you in a bit. And when you come back, we'll explore how to capture information sent from a webhook. I think in order to get the clearest picture of how webhooks work, it will help if we travel way back to 2007. It was a time of wearing double polo shirts so you could pop your collar twice. People wore Ugg boots with shorts. And Justin Timberlake was actively trying to bring sexy back. And web forms were still a thing. It was a simpler time. To gather information from a user on your website, you'd write an HTML form and you'd put a method on it of post. And in the action, you'd put the name of the script. And it's important to remember that the web is stateless. Once this request to generate the page that the form lives on, the web server job is done. The GET request is over. So your user would fill out the HTML form with the named fields, and then they'd click a submit button. What the browser does for you in this case is it takes all the values that were entered in the form and it makes a brand new HTTP request to the URL that you specified in the action attribute. That post request contains the data that the user entered in an encoded way. And as a developer, you would write a request handler on your website to capture the information from this request, and then you'd act on it. So again, Your browser is making a request to your server. So way back in 2007, a developer by the name of Jeff Lindsay made a proposal to use an existing idea already very present in software design patterns. He proposed to use the hook model that we talked about, but instead of locally, he suggested to do it over the internet, and he called it a webhook. Jeff realized that it would be fairly straightforward for web developers who were already very familiar with processing form data submitted via a POST request. What this approach would feel like to developers is just another form submission. In this case, instead of the user submitting the form, a third party could submit the data. The handler could be written the same way the developer already knows. The information is pushed to the handler in that same familiar way to the developer, and everyone wins. So, in order for this to work, the third-party application needs to be informed from the developer where they should post their information. You know, the URL where that handler lives. And then, when the third-party event happens, it posts the information about the event to that URL. And that app is definitely embracing the Hollywood principle, right? Don't call us, we'll call you. And it took off for all the reasons that event-based programming wins. It's, of course, way more efficient to receive a POST request than continuously polling an API checking for a change. Instead of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? Via an API, the POST request sends, we're here. So that was 2007. Webhooks are now everywhere. And I'm guessing what brought you to this course was that you encountered one in the wild. And you weren't exactly sure how to use it. No worries. This happens to everyone the first time they run across one. It's a bit challenging to understand at first. The web has changed a lot since 2007, but the webhook concept here is still pretty much the same. Our apps are now built differently. Like for instance, we may be using services, and instead of form posts, we build our own APIs for our clients to use. And the client posts information to our API, usually not using a form. We developers use web-based APIs all the time to build our applications. You should view webhooks as an extension of that type of work. This is why sometimes you'll hear webhooks referred to as a reverse API. It calls you instead of you calling it. When you use an API, you need to understand the parameters that it expects. And the reverse is true for webhooks. You need to know what information is being sent to you and in what format. There's no formal specification, and any data can be sent to your handler. Now, these days, our web handlers most likely look a wee bit different than they did in 2007. Technology has evolved. Some handlers still accept traditional form-posted data, and some of our handlers accept JSON posted in the body for client-side, the APIs that we're writing, right? See the teacher's notes for more on this. You'll find a variety in what webhooks post to your handlers as well. As a developer, writing one of these webhook handlers, it's pretty important that you understand how to capture and parse that incoming data. Let's take a look at an existing webhook implementation and see if we can't capture the data to inspect right after a quick break. By now, I'm hoping that you're inspired to connect unrelated applications together. We've got a good taste of some powerful concoctions through the no-code solutions of IFTTT and Zapier. You've seen what's possible. You understand why you'd want to use events to trigger actions as opposed to polling an API repeatedly. With the what and the why of webhooks out of the way, I think it's time that we take a deeper look under the hood to see how these webhooks are actually working. I was trying to think of common applications that all of us developers are bound to use, and the obvious one to me is GitHub. If you've taken a look at the notes for this course, which I hope you have, then you've for sure already encountered GitHub. I've put the notes and code for this course in a GitHub repository, or repo. GitHub is a social coding site. It enables you to share your code and work on projects together. You can submit issues and keep detailed version history of your software, and you can read documentation. It's a wonderful place to explore when you're first learning to code. If you don't have an account yet, I'd love for you to pause the video and sign up for a free account. Now, quick note, I'm going to show off a little bit of how to use GitHub. I've dropped notes that give a more detailed tour in the teacher's notes to learn more. Make sure to check it out. There's even a link to a video game that will walk you through making your first pull request. or a request to make a change to someone else's code. I know that can feel a little bit daunting, but it doesn't need to. I want it to feel fun for you because it is. After you've got yourself logged into GitHub, we'll fork my teacher's notes repository to your account. This will make it all yours. Now, forking is the process that happens when you see a repository that you like and you'd like to explore it and make your own changes. You fork it and you make it your own. You make your own copy of that repository. Now, you can always later ask to apply the changes back to the original repository. Now, I want you to fork the repository because once the repository is all yours, you can specify some webhooks on it. So here I am on the notes repository for this class. The link's attached in the video. I did want to make a quick note that the layout might look a little bit different on the GitHub site as they're constantly making improvements. Now, in the off chance that you can't find what I'm doing because the site has changed, please remember to check the notes for this specific video. I'll update future you there with what's different and we'll get back on track. Sure glad I used GitHub for this. Up here, you'll see some social features. So you can star a repo, which is equivalent of a social media love or thumbs up. Now, as a developer, someone giving you a star has that same dopamine hit as a like does. The more stars your repo receives, the more likely it'll be discovered. And here is the fork icon. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fork this, and I'm going to put a copy in my account. And now you'll see it's copying everything over. And this is now my own copy. Boom, just like that. Pretty forking fast, right? So note how this repo is mine. It's under my username, and you can see where it was forked from. And now that this repo is mine, you can see that I have a settings tab now. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click into here. And you'll see here on the left nav that we have an option for webhooks. Awesome. Let's click into it. Ooh, webhooks allow external services to be notified when certain events happen, just like we talked about. Awesome. Totally makes sense. Okay, so let's add a webhook for our repo. So I'm going to click this add webhook button. So I was thinking that we should get the information when someone stars our repo. So what we're going to need is a URL to handle that request. Do you have one? I don't have one. So a quick solution to capture a webhook, just to check things out, is to use what's known as a mocking tool. One of my favorite ways to mock a webhook handler is to use a web-based tool called Bceptor. Here, let me show you. I'm going to open that up. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to make a new tab. We're going to go to bceptor.com. Let's make this a little bit bigger. And again, Bceptor might look a little bit different if you come in here. So check the notes if you can't seem to follow along with what I'm doing. So let's see, what am I going to do? I'm going to try GitHub event. So let's call it GitHub. So basically what you do is you just put your name there and you can click this create endpoint. And now, as you can see, I have this github.free.bceptor.com. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to copy this. I'm going to keep this page open. I'm going to pop back over to my add a webhook page here. And I'm going to paste that into the payload URL. So that's where it will be sent, where the information will be sent. And we're going to capture the stars. So I'm just going to push /stars at the end here so that I know what that is. And that's the cool thing about Bceptor. You can just invent whatever you want. That route doesn't exist, but it will still catch it. All right, let's keep filling out this form. So we have content type. That's nice that GitHub lets you do that. We have a couple options here. We can either send JSON or form URL encoded. So I'm going to choose JSON. Let's do that. And the other nice thing that GitHub does is they let you choose which events you would like to trigger the webhook. You could send just the push event. That's when somebody sends code to your repo, or you could say, send me everything. But they also let you select individual events. And we really only want when someone stars the repo. So let's do that. So I'm going to click that. And I'm going to choose down in here. There is one for, see how much stuff you can do. You can sure do a lot. So I'm going to do stars. So here it says a star is created or deleted from a repository. And I'm going to uncheck pushes. Okay. So there we go. So we just have stars. So anytime somebody stars this repo, we should get an event. Cool. All right, so I'm going to click Add Webhook. And now if I go and star my own repo, because I can do that, because I like myself, I'm going to star it. And if I head over to Bceptor, you'll see that there was a post to stars. Actually, there was two because GitHub posts originally to your link just to make sure it works. So here is what happened when we starred. So I'm going to click into this here, and then I'm going to click this little Cody thing looking thing over here. I'm going to click this because it will help format things better. And this is what GitHub sent us. It's pretty cool, right? So it shows you all the different information of the repo that was on. And if we scroll down a little bit farther, we can see all things about the repo, all these different REST APIs that I can hit to get more information if I wanted to. This is all about the repo itself. And I think if we get down here a little bit closer, this is kind of hard to read in here, but definitely captures exactly what was sent. If we scroll down, wow, that's a lot. If we scroll down into here, there we go. We can see who sent the star and we can see who the user was, which is very nice. And it's got more information. It's got the avatar URL. I'm gonna actually let's open that up. Let's see. Let's see what this is. Wow, look at that dork who liked this repo. And I can use this to figure out what I would like to handle, right? So this is a post that was sent to any URL, and I can figure out what I want to handle. I want to go back and show you something else that's pretty cool inside of GitHub that not everybody offers that offers a webhook, but GitHub is pretty great. So I'm going to come back into our webhook that it exists, and it will show you what happened, right? So it will show you the deliveries that were made. So if I open this up, I can see, and this is actually more nicely formatted. Not everything offers this, so it is important to remember Bceptor because you're going to want to catch other webhooks, and not everybody has this nice functionality. So again, we can see this, and we can see, see that dork, this dork here. It's so nice that GitHub lets you control the format and actually see the way the data is presented. They really webhook you up. Okay, so now that we have a firing webhook, let's see if we can't make use of that data right after a quick break. We've now got a webhook that fires when our repository is starred. And I think we should use that knowledge to celebrate. And we shouldn't celebrate alone. So I was thinking about another pretty common developer tool that you're bound to encounter is some sort of real-time group chat software. It's very common that you'll end up in a chat room of sorts. Now, whether that be Slack or Microsoft Teams or Discord, these channels are a great way to stay up to date with whatever it is that you're congregating around. It's also a good place to just hang out and learn. So I was thinking, why don't we explore sending our GitHub data into one of these chat platforms? We'll make sure that everyone celebrates when our repo gets started. Now, I'm going to choose Discord, but you'll find that most platforms provide a similar sort of integration. Now, like we saw with GitHub, we were able to define a webhook that would fire when certain events happen. Now, Discord actually allows you to set up the other side automatically. They set up a webhook handler for you. Let's see what that feels like. Just a friendly reminder, this is probably going to look a little different for you in the future. Now, if you run into any problems following along, check the teacher's notes. I'll update you there with changes. All right, so if you don't already have Discord, it's a pretty quick setup, and I've included installation instructions in the notes. Go ahead and pause me and get it all set up. This here is my current Discord. I've got some learning channels set up. So here's the free code camp, and there's Twilio Quest, there's the coding den, all great learning communities. If you're looking for extra places to hang out and learn to code, check out the teacher's notes. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to make my own brand new server by clicking the plus button. And I am going to say create a new server and invite your friends. I'm going to do that. Let's go ahead. I'm going to call this exploration. And we can get rid of this later. Totally fine. And I'm going to click create. And it's going to say invite your friends. And I'm just going to go ahead and close this. I've got friends. I promise I got friends. So what's really nice about each one of these Discord channels? So like this is where you could come and talk, right? So you could talk in these channels. Each one of them has this little icon here, and because we own this server, we can edit the webhook. So let's go in here. I'm going to click on this integrations over here on the left. And you'll see here, there's this webhooks. I'm going to choose create webhook. And let's see. Webhooks are a simple way to post messages from other apps and websites into Discord using internet magic. I agree. They are pretty magical, aren't they? Let's make some magic. Oh, and here it came up with a suggested name, Captain Hook. What a great dad joke, which, if I'm honest, I'm kind of bummed that I didn't think of. Hopefully, some more dad jokes pan out. This one kind of petered out at the end. All right, so I'm going to change this to GitHub Notifier. It says careful, you have unsaved changes. So I'm going to click Save Changes because I want that. So I want a thing called GitHub Notifier in general. So again, what's happening here is that this is building a webhook handler. So when you post to it, it sends a message into the general channel. Now, this is important to note. This is different from what we saw at GitHub. GitHub made the request to the handler. This handles the request, both called webhooks. But therefore, because we have both sides of this, we should just be able to connect them, right? And in fact, it looks like the only thing I can do is just copy this webhook URL. So, and really, that's the webhook handler URL. I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna click this learn more up here because let's assume that we didn't know what we were gonna do with this. I'm gonna click up this at this learn more. And it talks about some things that we could do, and it says can't really use webhooks, can use webhooks. Here's GitHub. That's great. I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger for all of us. It's talking about making a webhook. Oh, look, it's changed already. So before it's under integrations now. So already, see, these notes have changed a little bit. That's fine. So there's the Captain Hook joke for Git updates. Let's see. Let's keep on scrolling. Well, this looks important. To make a webhook message display messages properly, it's really, 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 really important. The caps there got me. That you append /GitHub to the end of it. Yes, like 5 really is important. Okay, so it's telling us to go over to our GitHub settings like we had done before and put the /GitHub on there. So let me get back to that. Let's get back to that. Here we are. Here is my GitHub repo. And I'm gonna leave this old webhook in place. So let's go back into our webhooks here, and I'm gonna add a new one. So you can have multiple webhooks doing different things, and let's do that. Let's just explore what that feels like. So I'm gonna add a new webhook, and I'm gonna paste. Before I copied, right? I copied from that Discord. I clicked the copy URL button, so I have that there. Except then I copied the help, so that's not good. Let's not use that. Let's go back to the Discord, and I'm gonna do this copy webhook URL. So now it says copied in the clipboard. I'm going to come back over here and I am going to paste. And wow, that is a long URL. And I need to do something. I was reminded something like 5 times. Oh, right. Really, really important to say /GitHub at the end there. There we go. Now, this handler is unique to me so that you can tell that this is whatever this is here. This yours is going to look different than this. This is my specific user, probably my specific channel all encoded in there, and I've added /GitHub at the end. And the content type in those notes, I saw that it said application JSON. And what's nice about, of course, having 2 different webhooks is we can do whatever we want here. I'm gonna click just send me everything, everything that happens. Let's go ahead and send it, and I'm gonna click add webhook. Okay, and fingers crossed, I am going to unstar the event, and then I'm gonna star it. Ooh, I heard a little Discord beep. I think we did it. I'm gonna go. Oh, that reveal wasn't as exciting as it could have been because I wasn't here. But look, there we go. A new star was added by Craig S. Dennis, and there's that little avatar of mine. It's working. I think it could probably be a little bit more celebratory, but check us out. We wired up 2 completely separate services just like that. Pretty cool, right? We set out to do basically just what we wanted. When someone stars our repo, everyone in the general channel there will be able to see it and they can celebrate along. We saw how the nomenclature was kind of interesting, right? Like we saw how both services, GitHub and Discord, call it a webhook. One is the pushing side and the other is the handler side. It's a little confusing, isn't it? But what Discord is doing by putting that trailing /GitHub is specifically formatting that information that's pushed across from GitHub. It understands what is sent from GitHub and it has specific formatting for Discord. I don't know about you, but I think for stars, I'd like to see it more sparkly. Give me some more emojis in there at least. Really celebrate. So in order to do that, we'll need to handle that GitHub request ourselves and turn it into the format that Discord's expecting. That sounds like a good idea. Let's get ready to write some code. There goes our no code streak. Why don't you get up, take a breath of fresh air, give those coding muscles a stretch, and be ready to come back and dive into some code. We've got our GitHub event notifications broadcasting to our Discord channel, and we're feeling pretty good about what we were able to accomplish with just a little bit of configuration. But we've decided that we want to make things work a little bit differently than the default. This is a very common scenario and a good look at why sometimes you can't solve everything with no-code solutions. There are often specific tweaks that your customers would like to make that aren't necessarily exposed. Let's make our tweak. Let's make it so that when someone stars our repo, we write out some emojis and show a big picture of our code's newest fan. Now, in order to do this, we'll need to write a handler. I've written the boilerplate, or the beginning common bits of the code for us already. It's available in the repo. Before we dive in, I want to take a quick moment here to talk about some of the possible challenges that we might start to encounter as we start developing on our local machines. In order to get things up and running here, I'm going to be using a lot of tools. Now, depending on where you are in your coding journey, some of these tools might be completely unfamiliar. Now, I want to assure you that it is okay for it to feel overwhelming. We've all been there. Setting up these tools is a one-time thing, but it definitely is a hurdle that I don't want to minimize. I've seen this frustrate folks to the point of giving up their coding journey. Please, don't give up. You are doing great and you will make it through this. Ask for help, and remember, all of us have been through this. I've included instructions for installation for all of the tools that we'll be using here shortly in the notes. Please, remember that you can pause me for as long as you need to get things working. All right, let's do this. The first thing that we're going to need to do is get this repository from GitHub onto our local machines. And the way you do that is by clicking this code button. As you can see, there are several ways to get a hold of this code. You could even download a zip if you wanted to. However, I'm going to suggest that we use Git to do this, but like you see here, you don't have to. So I'm using a Mac and I'm going to start my terminal. So I'm going to do that by pressing Command space and typing terminal. On Windows, this will be either your command prompt or your PowerShell. So at the command prompt, I'm going to make sure that I have Git installed. I'm going to type git -- version. There we go. And as long as something comes back, you're all set. If not, you'll need to install Git. There are instructions in the teacher's notes. Git is a powerful version control software which lets you and your fellow developers make and document changes to files. Now, using Git is unfortunately out of the scope of this course, but I highly recommend learning it. I've shared links in the notes for where to pick up this crucial collaboration tool. It makes things like we're about to do super convenient. So, I am going to navigate to where I'd like to store this code. This is, of course, a personal decision. I keep a code directory or folder right off my home directory, which is represented by this tilde in Unix land. So I'm going to change directories or CD into that directory, and it's called code. And I'm going to make a new directory here called courses. I like to store the tutorials and courses that I take the code for them. I store them in a place called courses. So I'm going to say make dir mk dir courses. So back at GitHub, I'm going to choose that I want to get this using HTTPS. I could use SSH if I wanted to, but I'm going to use HTTPS. Typically, do use SSH. This is up to you if you have it set up. This is something that you need to do. If this is your first time doing it, you won't need to set anything up to make this work. So I'm going to copy this URL here. I'm going to click this. I'm going to go back to my terminal. I'm going to say git clone, and then I'm going to paste. So we've got that URL there. So I'm going to click this. What this does is this pulls a copy of all of the code and puts it locally on my machine here. And so now that it's here, I'm going to change into that directory. So cd web, and I'm going to press tab, webhooks course. Here we go. And I'm going to open up this whole directory in my editor. I use Visual Studio Code, and if you don't yet have an editor, I highly recommend this editor as well. It's pretty great. It's free. There's tons of plugins. There are installation instructions in the notes. So I'm going to type code, and then I'm going to press dot. Awesome. Here it goes. Let me make this a little bit bigger. The code that I want to draw your attention to is over here in the code directory. So I'm going to click this to open it. And then I'm going to look at this Express Discorder. This is what we're going to work on right now. So we're going to open up this Express Discorder. And in here in this server.js, this has the boilerplate code that I was talking about. This is using a web server called Express. And the handler that we're going to handle is a post from /GitHub, and then it will run this code. We'll take a look at this code here in a second. But basically, it means if you make a post to this web server that's running here, this web server, at /GitHub, it'll run this code here. This code will run when a post happens. But in order to run this, we need to make sure that we have Node installed. So VS Code has a built-in terminal, actually. So let's go ahead and use that. So we're going to go to Terminal and New Terminal. And you'll see here that in the future, I can use Control and then tilde. Nice. And so now it's put me in the root there. So I'm going to go into CD code, and then I'm going to go into the Express Discorder folder. Awesome. In order to run this server, we'll need to make sure that you have Node installed. I told you there were a lot of tools. So Node is a JavaScript runtime that allows you to run scripts on your local machine. Let's check and see if you have it already. So I'm going to go ahead and type node ---- version. Now, as long as this first part here, this V whatever, is 10 or greater, the code should work as expected. Now, if not, check the teacher's notes for how to install Node. Once you have Node installed, you'll also have npm installed. npm is Node's package manager, and you'll find that it stands for just about anything. I actually have quite a bunch of fun with that. Let's just go to the page really quick. So it stands for Nice Paintings, Mondrian. And what else does it stand for? Oh, does it not refresh every time? There we go. Nincompoops producing methane. Lovely plastic mustache. Okay, there we go. So it stands for Node Package Manager, but it stands for a lot of things. So what I've done already is I've built this package.json file, and it has in here some dependencies. And the dependencies will come in, and it will they're going to be installed for you when we use npm. So let's install those things. So we'll do that with npm install. And that will go and install packages like Express, the web server, and it will also use Axios, which is a library that we can use to make our own post requests because we're going to post to the Discord URL. We need to make post requests because we're going to post to our Discord webhook handler, like right in here. So it says axios.post, and we're going to post. Oh, that reminds me. We're going to need to store this someplace because remember that's private to you. It's your personal link, and as you're about to see, you don't want anyone getting their hands on it. If they just post to it, they could post in your channel, and you don't want that happening. So One way of dealing with this security is to use what's known as an environment variable. And what the code here is using, this process.env.discord webhook URL, is accessing your environment variables. So what I've done is I've set things up so that you can define in a file named .env, and that's right over here, and that's short for environment. And you'll see that you don't have one right now because we just checked this out, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to want to copy this env example. So we're going to grab this file. We're going to, let's see, I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to click this, and I'm going to click paste, right? So I right clicked or two finger clicked on a Mac to do that. And I'm going to rename this file now to .env. .env. There we go. And in here, you'll see that you need to get a hold of your webhook URL. So I'm going to go and grab that from Discord. So back in my settings, remember in the channel under integrations, under webhooks, I can view this webhook. Here's my GitHub notifier. I'm going to copy the webhook URL. I'm going to come over here and I am going to paste it and save. So now I have a .env, and this is my own private file. And what's nice about that is this code can now be shared, right? Like it's code that maybe anybody can run. Like was able to give this to you, and what made it personal for you was you put stuff in your environment variable. This is a common way to share code, but have the private information, like the stuff that's unique to you, hidden. Okay, with that all set up, I think that we're ready to spin up this web server. So I'm going to write npm start, and it says that it is listening at localhost, and it's telling me I can command click that. Let's go ahead and do that. And thumbs up indeed, we did it. So we have a local web server running. Awesome. Phew, that was a lot of tools to install in one video. Now that we're all set up, we need to make it so that GitHub points to our local web server. Uh-oh, our local web server. It's not on the internet. How can GitHub possibly see it? Let's take a quick break, and when you come back, let's explore tunneling so that webhooks can see our local system. We just got a local web server all set up, and it's ready to handle events from the GitHub webhook. But we have a slight problem. Our web server is local. Only we can see it. It's not on the internet. And this is typically how you do development, right? You develop locally, you get things working the way that you want to, and then eventually you deploy your web server to a public-facing URL so that the world can visit your masterpiece. But typically you only deploy after you've worked through all your challenges. You don't deploy right away. Now, this makes for an interesting challenge in creating webhooks. In order for a webhook to work, we need to be able to make a post request to a public URL. Now, the good news is there are a lot of tools. And yes, I'm going to have you install another tool. Sorry, but it's just one this time. So what this tool does is it opens up a tunnel on your local machine so that your application can be publicly accessible from the internet. Now, this type of tool is handy also for like if you want to see your application in development, like if you want to look at your phone or your tablet instead of just your local machine. It's pretty handy and it's quick to use. All right, let's open up this tunnel. The tool we're going to install is called ngrok. The N stands for network, and to grok something means to understand it. It's also a Unix tool that allows you to understand unstructured data. What ngrok allows you to do is open up a specific port on your machine. Now, if you recall, our local server was running on port 3000. So what we can do is open up that port to the internet. I hope that you'll grok ngrok here shortly. So first things first, get ngrok installed. Now, not to be a broken record, but this page is bound to look different in your future. Check the notes if you have trouble following along at any point. So there's a download section. So let's go in here. Let's go ahead. Let's download it. It's free. I'm going to download this for Mac OS. I'm sure it will detect where you're at. And what you get back is a zip file that has a command line executable in it. So I'm going to click that and open it up, and it automatically opened up in my downloads directory. So go ahead and pause me and try to find where your download went. Mine went into my downloads directory. So I'm going to go in my Visual Studio Code. I'm going to open up another terminal here. This you can do that with this little plus here. So here's another terminal. And I know that that went into my downloads directory. So I can say cd my home directory and then downloads. And then from here, I can say in this directory, run ngrok dash dash help. We can just kind of see what it does. And there's the different things that it can do. So I use ngrok all the time. So I've put it in my path, and that lets me run it from wherever I'm at. Check the notes on how to do this. It's totally optional. I will use the ngrok from my downloads directory in these videos. But if you want to add it to your path because you want to use it all the time, check the notes and you can get yourself set up. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my other tab. Looks like I have 3 open. You can type exit there. So I've got the node. I have the server is running, and it's running on localhost 3000. And in my other terminal here, I'm going to go ahead and do /ngrok. And then you say what you want to do. So I'm going to open up an HTTP port, right? Hypertext Transfer Protocol. And I want to open it up on port 3000. And if I do this, what happens is I get a brand new URL. And if I copy this, I copy this URL. And you'll notice that there's a HTTPS as well, which is pretty awesome. You get an HTTPS for free. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to copy that one. Or actually, I could command click it. Let's do that. We'll command click it. And it's going to open up that web page. And you'll see that this string of numbers, if I did that, I could also open that up on my phone or my tablet, and it would be working. So I totally had that hairdo, by the way. So because we can see this URL, it also means GitHub can now post its payload to us and we can process it. So let's jump back and let's take a little deeper look at what's happening in that code in the server.js. So let's get back into that code there. Let's see if we can get a little more real estate over here. I can't, unfortunately. Let's see, maybe we can go a little bit lower there. Is that all right? I think that's all right. Okay. So we are going to get a post to /GitHub, and it's going to, it sets up a couple things. We got this content, and we have this hard-coded avatar URL, and it's going to post to our webhook URL. It's going to post the content, which is what we said here. It should say wave. This is an emoji, and it should say hi, mom. And I like to always debug with my mom whenever I can. And then we're going to post, and then we'll send back a success message if it worked, and if not, we'll send out an error here. Well, let's run it. I'm going to copy our ngrok URL one more time. Just make sure I've got that in the clipboard. I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to take that over to our GitHub settings, right? So let's get back. Here's the GitHub course. I'm going to go into the settings, head over to webhooks, and I am going to add a new webhook. And it's making me log in. So I'm going to let me grab my password here. Okay. All right. So we're going to add that webhook. And again, I'm going to copy that because I copied my password. So I'm going to copy this link here, the ngrok IO. And remember that we have a /GitHub that we need to post to. So let's go in here. We're going to paste. Let's get this trailing stuff off. And we'll say /GitHub. And we want it to send JSON because I think that's easier to work with. And let's just select the individual events. We'll do a star. Let's uncheck pushes. We are just interested in when somebody stars. And we're going to go ahead and add webhook. Okay. So let's switch back to our node server. Oh, it said success. It said success. Does that mean that we got a post already? Don't switch. Boom, we got it. So as soon as you set it up, it sets one. So there we go. Hi, Mom, and there's Dr. Tyson, amazed by what we just did. So we sent a message from GitHub through our tunnel to our local machine, back out to the webhook handler. Awesome. Boom indeed, Dr. Tyson. We got it. Well, kinda. I mean, we got the starts of it, right? So now we can iterate our development until we get exactly what we want. So just like we saw with Bceptor, I can actually use ngrok to see what was passed to us. So let's go to the ngrok. Go back to the ngrok window real quick. And if I come, I'm going to move this up a little bit here, even a little bit more. You can see that there is a post was made to our GitHub from GitHub. So in here, there's this web interface. So if you follow this link by doing a command click on it, you will see that this is the information that we got from GitHub. Now let's go ahead. Let's make sure that it's working when we get a star, because right now that just worked from the original message. So I'm going to go to Webhooks. I'm going to unstar and star. I think we'll get two. Yeah, so you get one every time you star and every time you don't star. So there was a new star added. That was from one of the bots that we were pushing before, and then here's this one that we just did from getting a star on the thing. Awesome. So it's working. And if we look at our ngrok inspector here, we can see that this is the message that was sent, and it was an action that was created. And this is nice, right? This is, we can see exactly what was sent, so we can hang out in here. And now I realize that GitHub also shows you this, and we could do this with Bceptor, but once you get ngrok running, this flow is pretty much all we need, right? So we could see that there's the sender, there's the avatar that we're going to need to grab. And I'd also like to show the repository name, right? So let's take a look and see if we can't find that too. So the repository name, this is great. This would be awesome here to say the name of it. So you can either use this name or full name. So those are what we want to grab from this JSON that just came in from the post. So let's take a look at that real quick. So since we already have the, in our code, let's bring this back down here. In our code, we already have this avatar URL defined here. Let's go ahead and let's grab that from the request. How's that sound? So we're gonna get rid of this hard-coded Dr. Tyson thing there, and we're gonna get from the JavaScript object that's being passed in here. So we have the request that comes in, and on the request, there is a body, and I have it so that it is reading JSON for us. This boilerplate is reading the JSON, so it knows about it. So that was in .sender, right at the bottom there. If we look, we were in down here in sender. We have this avatar URL, right? So this is who started, and this is their avatar. So I have this avatar URL, so I'm going to use that here. So I'm going to say recbody.sender.avatar, and it was underscored URL. And now, to make sure I got it, I'm going to need to start and stop my server. And it's a little annoying, right? This is a little annoying to have to start and stop my server to make sure that it works, but I will. So Control C will get you out of that, and then I'm going to do npm start to run that again. And now my code is reloaded, but I don't want to do that every time. I don't want to stop. I don't want to Control C and do stuff. So I know I said only one tool, and you don't really need this, but I think you're going to want this. So there's a tool called NodeMon that will watch your JavaScript files and it will automatically restart the server for you. It's really nice, and I want you to have it, although I don't want to keep on throwing tools at you. But I'm going to show you how I install it. You don't have to use it. So we're going to do npm install or NodeMon -G for global. So after you install this, you can use it whenever. That's what the -G means there. And so now that this has been installed, we can say nodemon start. It kind of looks like it says node daemon or like nodemon. Anyway, so here we go. And now you can see that if I add this hi mom and I add some more and I click save, it will restart the server, which is exactly what we want, right? You want to change every time you save. You want the server to be running your latest thing. It's a quick, rapid development thing that once you get in the hang of it, you will love it. All right, so the server restarted, and back on the ngrok page, I don't know if you noticed this or not, but this is awesome. there is also, just like on, I guess there's a replay. So you can replay and you can actually even edit it. But I'm going to go ahead and click this replay. Ooh, there we go. Boop. Okay, so there we go. Hi, Mom. There's the there's my avatar coming through. So my avatar URL is now there. So now that's a pretty big picture. I love that. That feels great. This is a new person who liked your code. Great. Good feeling. We're doing good. And we really say hi, Mom, now, right? Our change is live. So now what we need to do is we need to change the content variable. Okay, so we need to change this content. So instead of saying hi, Mom, we need to make this dynamic about who came in. Let's do this. I'm gonna write a to do here. So I'm gonna write a to do. So we'll say to do. Change the content variable to contain the repository name and the GitHub username. And why don't you add some emoji flair? So you can explore if you want to in here. You can explore with, there's like rocket, right? So there's a rocket thing that you can do. So if you just type colon and then the name of it, you can start seeing what it is that you can do with emoji flair. So why don't you pause me and see if you can complete this to do? So use the request from GitHub to do this, right? So you can look over at your ngrok and see what's going on there and make sure that you change the content of this and then go ahead and do a replay and see if you can get that content to be what you're happy with when somebody stars your repo. So give it a shot, and when you're done, unpause me and I'll show you how I did it. Remember to use ngrok to see what the request looks like and to replay it. Are you ready? Pause me. How'd you do? I hope it went well, and don't sweat it if it didn't. You'll get this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the username, and that was in rec.body.sender.login. Okay, so, and then I'm also going to grab the repo name. I like to pull these things out just to make sure I got them. So we'll say rec.body.repository.name. So the sender was at the bottom and the repository was up at the top there in that request. And what we can do is we can use a string template in JavaScript. So we can say one of these backticks like this, right? So then we can say $username just starred $repo name. And this way, you could have other people set up to their repo. So you could share, like, let's say we're in a community of everybody who is writing some code together. We could all run this. And because this is our own private Discord URL, you could let other people run it in their GitHub, in their Discord webhooks, or they can post to this URL. Awesome. So let's go ahead. I'm going to save this. It's saved. And the server has restarted. So fingers crossed, we're going to go back over to our ngrok and we're going to click replay. We heard the little Discord go and it says Craig S. Dennis just started the Webhooks course. Oh, shoot, I forgot my flare. Let's go back. Let's see. I definitely think we need some tacos. Can't have enough tacos. So we got taco. How about, let's definitely do the rocket. That's one of my favorites. Rocket, and I also like Tada taco. And I will save. And again, I'm going to come back and I am going to replay. I heard the boop boop. And there we go. Oh, beautiful. So much flair. Awesome. Pretty smooth workflow, right? I hope that gave you a clear feeling of what developing a webhook handler might feel like in practice. We saw how not only can ngrok open up a tunnel to your local machine, but it also provides the ability to review and store what was posted. And it even allows you to replay. It really speeds up your development process. Now, I'm sure you're probably wondering, well, great, but does this mean I have to leave my local machine on? And of course, the answer is no. But you're going to need to deploy your application so that GitHub can reach it. Now, if you don't have an existing application, this can definitely seem daunting. You probably don't want to spin up a Heroku instance just to host this single endpoint. That seems like a lot of work. One of the solutions that has been gaining a lot of ground is the idea of a cloud function. We'll take a look at this here in a second so that you can see how that feels. These make a really good solution for a quick webhook handler, and I want you to get a feeling for it as it's getting more and more popular in this world. But before we get there, you, my friend, are due for a break. That was a lot of technology and a smattering of concepts. I want you to take a break and let it all soak in. I'd love for you to make sure that you can picture in your brain the request from GitHub coming to your handler and your handler doing what it needs. Now, in our case, it's posting to a webhook handler that was already set up by Discord. I'd also like you to take a minute and realize that you can now run any code at all. When an event that supports webhooks occurs, you can handle it. And that's pretty cool, isn't it? Now, as empowered as I felt before by the no-code workflows like IFTTT, these possibilities are actually quite limitless. Now, I could definitely make my dog light up when I get a star. Well, check this out, just like this. Dog star. Keanu would get that one. Okay, so after your break, let's swing back and check out serverless cloud functions. Okay, we got our webhook written and we're happy with it. But in order to run, we need a public URL. And while our tunnel solves the problem for development purposes, it's definitely not production ready. Now, we could deploy our web server that we wrote and host it somewhere. There are lots of providers that do that. And it's definitely getting easier to deploy a web server. But even the server seems a little heavy, doesn't it? We're really just taking some values and quickly doing our thing for a single request type. It's hardly a web application. Well, we're not alone in this feeling. Succinctly, this feeling is, do we even need a server? Could the project go without one? Could this be serverless? There's a growing movement called serverless, and it tackles this problem exactly. You don't need to worry about the server. Someone else will handle it for you, and it will scale both up and down for you. Now, this scaling both directions is referred to as elasticity. Function as a service, or FaaS, is the idea at the core of serverless. Basically, you write a function and you follow the specific parameters, and the provider handles all the routing, responses, and scaling. All of the big cloud players have some sort of version of this, and typically, the executions are free until you hit a certain threshold, and even then, you only pay for when the function executes. This can lead to tremendous cost savings. Also, because there's only ever one function, it makes the code very easy to read and understand. So it's kind of like, take me down to the paradise elasticity where the FaaS is cheap and the code is pretty. Oh, won't you please take me home? Oh, yeah. Is that too much? I really Axl rose to the occasion there. I guess we can probably just slash that part out later. Okay, fine. No more puns in roses. I thought you should have a taste of how the serverless development feels, and so I went ahead and got the solution all coded up and ready to deploy. There are a lot of serverless providers to choose from, but one of my favorites to get up and running quickly is Netlify. Now, standard warning is in effect. This flow that we're about to do is bound to look a little bit different. Netlify is always adding functionality. And another thing that I want to point out here before we dive in, this is totally optional. You don't need to do this. I totally won't be offended if you just watch me do this. So, I've signed up for a Netlify account and I used my GitHub account. And I'm going to head to their docs really quick. And they're right here in the header, docs. Now, what I want to install is the CLI, or Command Line Interface, which allows us to run commands from our command line for Netlify. So let's go ahead, let's click this, let's get started. So here's some great information on it. And we're going to go ahead and install it, and we're going to install it with a -G, which makes it go globally. Okay, so that means that we can use it wherever. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to run this right from the root of the directory. It doesn't matter where we do it because we're going to do it globally. So this will install the Netlify package. And what this will do is what we'll do is we'll authenticate, and it will allow us to do actions on Netlify uh, on our behalf. It's super powerful. It's great. You hardly ever actually need to leave your command line anymore. Kind of you just hang out in this editor. I think you're going to love it. Okay, we are all set up here. So again, like I said, I had already started porting this code over. And first, let's log in first. So if you do netlify space login, uh, I'm already logged in. But what will happen here? I'll switch my account so that you can see that I go through the same thing that you do. So I'm going to say switch my account, and I am going to log into a new account, and it's going to pop up here, and it's going to say authorize this application, and this is okay to do. This is what we want to do. We want to authorize that CLI. Awesome. So now you can also revoke it at any time from the screen here inside of Netlify after you're logged in. All right, here we go. We are logged in to Netlify. I'm going to take a look at this directory here. So this is the Netlify Discorder. Open that up, and under functions Discorder, there's a file called discorder.js. This is very, very similar to the local code that we had just looked at, the Express code. There's a couple things that are a little bit different. The first thing that I want to point out is that this function is asynchronous. And you can tell that because it says async. And what that allows you to do is then later await. So you can see here that when this Axios, remember this is what we're using to post to Discord, this returns what's known as a promise. And it's a promise that in the future there will be a value. And we handled this differently when we were not in an async function. And let's just take a look at that real quick. So if I open up the Express Discorder and I look at the server, you'll see that I did axios.post. And then down here, I used a .then, and I got the response back, and then I played with the response, right? So this is a function that's getting the response back. But this function, when it was declared, is not asynchronous, and it's using a request and a response. Remember that. So it's using the request. And we were able to pull things off of the body before. So we were using rec.body, and it was already a blown up object. So just remember that. It's a little bit different. So again, this is using a promise, and it's using the then pattern. Where what's different over in Netlify is we are using an async method, which means that we're able to do something like this, where we can say await. Now, instead of it coming through in a then function, this pauses and waits and then goes here to go rest. So it actually runs synchronously, or it appears to run synchronously, right? And what makes this different is before we were catching it, we were doing a then, and then we were doing a catch on the error. Here we're using a standard JavaScript try and catch. Very similar, just a little bit different of a pattern. I know that can hang some people up, so please check the notes if you'd like to learn more about asynchronous JavaScript. And the other thing I really want to point out, what's the main difference that I had to do here porting these things over was before, remember, it was request and response. This just has event. Okay, so what's expected is the response you just return. So I'm returning an object that gives a status code of 204 instead of returning a response. That's what Express had expected. And event is basically the request object, more or less. And what you'll see here is event.body is a string, and in this case, it's going to be a JSON string, and we're going to parse it into body. So then the rest of the code is the same. So I just made an object called body, which is what was on the other request. It's just a little bit different, but pretty much the same code. So this code, we're going to go over into Netlify Discord. We're going to go into code, Netlify Discorder, right? Because we want to get our prompt in the same place here. Now, this is using Axios, and this also has a package JSON, and you'll see that it's got Axios. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to do an npm install, and there we go. Um, Believe it or not, this is ready to deploy. So watch this. This is awesome. So we're going to say netlify deploy, and we're going to send this up to the netlify server. So the way that this works is anything that's in this functions folder here is going to become a serverless function. Let's do it. It's going to ask, it's not configured to a site, this folder that we're in right now. So we want to create a brand new site. So that is what we want to do. And here we go. So it says Team Craig Dennis's is. Everybody with the last letter of S knows what I'm feeling there. So yes, we do want Craig Dennis's team. All right. So we want to make a unique site name. So they suggested super cool site by Craig S. Dennis. Let's try GitHub stars because that's what we're doing, right? So you'll have to choose something different because I'm going to take it and somebody else already took it. Don't you hate this? This is how people end up with like GitHub stars 1925. So GitHub starred. Yes, I got it. So I've got GitHub starred, and that's going to be GitHub starred.netlify app. So now it's asking what directory do you want to publish, and it's that it looks like almost like an emoji, but it's a dot there. It says like this current directory. Yes, that's the directory I want. And would you believe it? But we just pushed up to a server, a live server. There's a function that's running, and it's running. So let's go. I'm going to jump in here into the admin side of things. I'm going to follow this link. So I click that logs link there. Here we come. We are up. We are published today. And let's drop out. Let's go take a look at these functions. It says one Lambda function is ready. And it's down here. It's this function. And in here, it whenever the function would run. So this is what the function's name is. So this is it here live. Whenever this runs, the function log will show any sort of console log that we have. Pretty cool, right? I do have one little bit of configuration to do. We need to set an environment variable for what our personal Discord webhook URL is, right? So that code, remember, I'm still using the environment variables in that code. So I need to put that environment variable here. And that's under here. It's under settings, and then it's under build and deploy. Here we go, environment variables. And I'm going to say edit variables, and our variable name, let's just verify we know what that variable name is. It's inside this Discorder file here, and we called it Discord webhook URL. So I'm going to pop that into my environment variable here. And the value that we want, you can get that from Discord. Let's grab that one more time just to remind ourselves where that's at. So we're gonna click the settings here, integrations, view webhooks, GitHub notifier, and I'm gonna copy the webhook URL. Okay, so I copied that. Come over to the build. I'm going to paste that. I'm going to click save. Now, if I come back to my function, let's go ahead and get that URL again. So it says that it is running in production. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to head over to our GitHub. And I'm going to go in my webhook course. And in the webhook course here, under settings, under webhooks, let's go ahead and let's edit this one, right? This is our local machine. This is the one that we were doing last time. It's not going to work because sometime I'm going to shut my computer off. I swear one of these days I'm not going to have it on. All right, I'm going to grab my password. So I'm going to paste my password. And I'm going to make sure that I have the webhook URL copied. And I'm going to change that to be, that's not right. That we don't want the Discord web app URL. We want the GitHub star.netlify app new site on Netlify. So I'm going to copy that. And I am going to paste that into my webhook. There we go. Everything is still set. I'm going to update the webhook. I am going to get my Discord into a good state. Here we go. Let's start this thing. Ooh, I heard it. So we get the new star added from here. Where is the one from Netlify? What happened? Let's see if we can debug it. So is this updated? GitHub starred Netlify Discorder. Is this? This doesn't look like. Maybe we need to update the webhook. It didn't. Maybe it didn't update. Oh, here we go. Here's some failed ones. Let's take a look. So what do we get in response? The URL argument must be of type string. Received undefined. Let's see if that's the same thing again. The URL argument must be of type string, received undefined. Let's see. So it doesn't like that avatar URL. Let's see why. So we've got, is it body sender avatar URL? We're parsing the event body. I'm assuming that's what the 500 is. Let's look at we can look at our logs though too. Let's see if there's anything that happened in the logs. It just says that it ran. I didn't get an error there. Let's see one more time what that said. So let's make sure that it has a sender with an avatar URL, sender avatar URL. Yeah, it's still there, sender avatar URL. So let's do a console log. Let's just show that off. Let's say console.log event.body. And then we'll do afterwards, we'll say console.log body. Okay, so, and I'm going to, now I made the changes here, so I need to push them up. Publish that directory. And see, it's a lot quicker the second time around. All right, and let's go replay that from GitHub. We don't want the delete one. That was the deleted, right? Let's replay the one. Let's do it. Let's. Oh, there we go. Now it's working. I don't know what that was. Something silly, but I wanted you to see, what you should see, is that this should update. There we go. So see, I can use console log here to look at things. I'm not exactly sure what happened. I think what I'll do is I'll go back and watch this, but you don't need to do the console log bits there. But that is how you deploy and debug a function in this new world. And the good news is that this function is free for 125,000 executions a month. I don't think I'm going to run into that limit, but you never know. This is a pretty killer repository. Oh, and while debugging with those handy dandy console log statements on production might not be your style, and it really shouldn't be your style, you can actually run a local Netlify dev environment. Check the teacher's notes for that. I hope that gave you a good test drive of serverless functions. Pretty neat, right? These functions are especially handy for webhook handlers and other one-off scripts. You literally could use a function just like that to kick off just about anything that you can imagine. That's a lot of power. Now, remember, on top of being basically free, this will scale both up and down with load because that elasticity is at the heart of serverless technology. I've added links in the notes to other serverless or cloud computing providers. All right, so now I hope that you're feeling like you've got a pretty good handle on webhooks. You understand why they're useful, you know what they can accomplish, you can see how you can do just about anything, and you even understand when you should use them. And really, that when is anytime you want to get notified of an external event. Whenever you feel like polling an API, check to see if they support webhooks first. Basically, you're a pro. And I realize you might not feel like one. We've been focusing on just one event. Now, there are a couple of other platforms that deeply embrace the concept of webhooks. I've got something planned that will really stretch your new webhook muscles, and I hope it should give you the confidence and, most importantly, the practice that you need. Take a quick break, and then let's get started on the final project for this course. So far, in this course, you've picked up the essential skills that you need to make use of webhooks in your applications. So I thought we'd apply those skills in a large project using completely different technology than we used thus far. This way, you can see how your skills are transferable. When it comes to technology that fully embraces webhooks, it's pretty hard for me to think of anything else other than Twilio. Now, if you've seen my courses before, you know that I am pretty obsessed with Twilio. When I saw that they used a video game to educate developers, I was like, I've got to work at this place. Freeze frame, record scratch, now I'm a Twilion, and I'm in the game. But really, I've loved Twilio ever since I was introduced to it. I was at a JavaScript conference in 2012, and someone had built a scavenger hunt that you could participate in by just texting a number, and it would respond with different hints. Now, not only was it fun, I was also impressed with how people were using the text messages to build interactivity. You didn't need to install anything, you just text a number and you were playing. It's a pretty incredible input device. Text messaging is just one part of the platform, really. Any sort of communication or engagement that you want to have, Twilio has an API for it. The way most of the products work is that you buy a phone number and that number is yours immediately. You can use it to make calls and texts, and you can program what happens when people call into it or text it. People build all sorts of fun and creative things on the platform. In addition to a completely cloud-powered call center, I've seen a video game get modified live through a text message. Somebody built a Smash Mouth hotline, which plays that one, "Somebody once told me," when you call it. It's such a mean trick to give someone when they ask for your number. There have been crisis lines that keep callers' numbers anonymous and routes to an available person who can help in the time of need. I even saw a kid built a fake snow day alert message. He got in trouble. You can build just about anything you can imagine, and Twilio does most of this magic through webhooks. We talked a while back about lifecycle hooks. This is the concept where the flow of the application allows you to hook into it, and the control is passed to you. You're responsible to respond with what the application should do next. And that's the main concept for what happens with incoming input to your Twilio number, a call or a text message, right? The control of the application is passed to you via a webhook. There are a ton of other webhooks that allow you to control what happens at different times when different events occur, continually passing control back to your webhook handlers. And because your handler is any public accessible URL, your code can be in any programming language. It just needs to respond with what you want Twilio to do next. Twilio's basically a webhooks playground. There are an impressive amount of them to play with. There's a couple of reasons for that. First off, Twilio has been around for a long time. So there's been lots of time to build these events, to hook into, and to perfect that flow. And for another reason, remember when we talked about the creator of the webhook concept, Jeff Lindsay? Well, he was a Twilion in the very early days of the company. I found that out researching the history of webhooks, and it all made sense. So I figure, what better place to show off your new webhook skills is there than Twilio? First, we'll build a simple Affirmation text app to get your feet wet. And then we'll launch into a larger project that will take ideas from callers, record them, and text them to us, all with webhooks. All right, let's get started building this webhook-based application. In order to show off the Twilio webhook basics, let's build a really simple messaging application. What we'll build is an app that responds to any text message with, "You've got this," just to give our texters a little confidence boost. Turns out those 3 words go a long way when you really need them. Now, in order to get started, you're gonna need a Twilio account. Now, don't worry, it's totally free. Twilio offers a free trial, and they give you more than enough free credit to build all of the applications in this course. If you don't already have an account, go ahead and pause me and follow the instructions in the teacher's notes. After you get your free trial all set up, unpause me. Ready?
Standard word of warning. This is bound to look a little bit different as Twilio is always improving things. Check the notes for anything that might function a little bit different. All right, I've set up a free trial account too, so we should be having pretty similar experiences. So there are a couple of restrictions with your trial account, which are listed up here. So you can send messages and make calls to verified numbers, and messages and calls include a note about this coming from a Twilio trial account. So like when we send this text message, we get a text message back, it's going to say sent from your Twilio trial account. Now, if you didn't already get your free trial number, go ahead and do that. So this get a trial number, go ahead, click that. That's going to give you one 203. That's great. I'm just going to choose this number. And right away, this number is all mine. With a paid account, you could get more. We only need everything that we're going to build with here. We just need this one phone number, and it doesn't matter that it has the trial message stuff on it for what we're going to build. All right, let's do it. So remember, what we're going to do is we're going to make it so that if anybody texts this brand new number that we just bought, we're going to return back a nice affirmation. So to do that, I am going to navigate to my numbers. So over here, there's these little 3 dots, all products and services, and I'm going to choose phone numbers here. And you'll notice that there's this little pin icon. If you pin that, it will make it so that it's part of the menu. So when you come back in here, you can find it. There's a ton of products. I'm going to pin it right now. Let's do that. So you'll see here's the menu. Now I've got this phone numbers thing here. So let's go into our phone numbers. And again, this is our demo one, my demo one. You have a different demo one. And I'm going to click into that. And I'm going to scroll down on this configure page. You'll see voice and fax. Yes, you can actually send faxes. Actually comes in handy. I don't know if you have a fax machine anymore. I don't. I'm going to scroll down here to messaging. And you'll see it says messaging. When a message comes in, send it to this webhook via an HTTP post. Send it to this webhook. And that is supposed to return the instructions that Twilio is expecting. Now, the format that's expected is TWIML, or Twilio Markup Language. Just like HTML renders your web page, TWIML renders your application. So I'm actually going to change this from webhook to TWIML bin. A TWIML bin is a handy way to return these instructions. You don't need to spin up your own server. This is taken care of for you by Twilio. So it's a serverless solution. So here, I'm going to make one. So I'm going to do that by clicking this plus button here. So I'll say plus. So I am going to name my TWIML bin so I can find it later. I'm going to call it Affirmation. Now, TWIML is tag-based and case-sensitive. So I'm going to say, and all of them start with a response. So response, response. Okay, so we want to add a tag that sends back a message, and that tag is actually message. And we'll say, you got this. I'm going to drop a muscly icon in here just to really get the point across. There we go. And then I'm going to close this message tag. Awesome. And you'll see that there's some, it'll tell us whether or not we've got it good. It says, this is good, valid messaging TWIML. So let's do it. Let's go ahead. We're going to create on this. And now you'll see messaging when a message comes in, go to this TWIML bin called Affirmation, return that. Need to remember to save the number. All right. Now, I'm going to pull out my phone, and I am going to text my number there. 203-902-5283. And what I expect, whatever I send, right, immediately it's going to send back, you got this. So I'm going to say, I'm having a hard time with JavaScript. And it says, you got this. You're right. I do got this. Thanks. Awesome. Okay. So that is basically the hello world of TWIML webhooks. And that's pretty awesome, right? It's a good use. It's like when a message comes in, send it to this webhook. And now remember, this can be any programming language or tool that returns a valid TWIML string. So you could return this from any web application that you have existing already. And this TWIML bin that we used, because we didn't have a server up and running, it's a serverless solution. Twilio's hosting it for us and handling the scaling for us. Like, we don't need to worry about that at all. More of this on the teacher's notes.
Pretty great, right? We now have a way to respond to any incoming message to our number. While we're currently only using a static solution, we could definitely build a dynamic handler that did whatever we wanted. This is like our handler that we use for posting to Discord. And this could be whatever you could dream up. And you can respond with a valid TWIML string to continue the application. We'll get to some more local development here in a second, but first, I think we should explore a low-code tool used to build complex serverless workflows. Okay, my next idea for an app is a little meta. I would love to have a call-in line where anyone could call and describe their ideas for cool webhook implementations. I love hearing all your ideas, and I find that when I discuss things out loud, it greatly increases the likelihood that I'll get it done. So let's do that. Let's build a hotline that prompts the caller to record their idea. And once the idea is recorded, let's transcribe it and then text it to ourselves. We took a look earlier at some no-code solutions that were powered under the covers by webhooks. Well, Twilio provides a low-code serverless solution that allows for rapid development and prototyping of applications. It's called Studio. And like most no-code or low-code tools, you'll find that you can build a lot of solutions just by dragging some objects around. Let's build the first part of an application using Studio. We'll make sure to keep our eyes out for webhooks.
Hey, future you, this is for sure going to look different. You'll find that almost all no-code tools rapidly iterate on their UI daily to make things more quick and clear, and I'm always pleasantly surprised when I open up Studio. Uh, I'll update the notes on any changes that might have occurred since right now in my timeline. All right, let's do this. Okay, so we're in our Twilio console. I'm on the phone number page currently, and I'm going to jump over to Studio. So that's these three little dots over here. And I am going to scroll down into runtime, and I'm going to choose Studio, and I don't want to do that scroll again. So again, I'm going to pin that so that shows up in my little menu here. So I'm going to go to Studio, and I'm going to click this Create a Flow button because that's what we're going to do. We're going to create a brand new flow. So let's do that. I want to call this flow Idea Catcher, and we'll say Next. And you'll see there's a bunch of templates that we can use, but let's just start from scratch. We have a pretty straightforward way of doing this. So let's go ahead. Let's just go next. That looks like the dork that starred my repo. So this here is called the canvas. And what you do is you drag widgets onto it. So let's see. When someone calls, we should tell them what we are expecting them to do. So I am going to grab this say and play because I want it to say what we want them to do. So I'm going to drag this over and we're going to drop it right here. And now that it's out here, I can click it. And what will happen is over here, these properties will change. So this say widget allows us to do text to speech. So I could also give it an audio file if I wanted to. That's in here. I could make it play a message, but we're gonna have it say a message. We'll do text to speech. So let's see. I want it to say, "Hello there. Um, I'd love to hear your wonderful idea. Tell me about it after the beep." All right. So these other fields down here, they are optional, but they're here. Might as well fill them out, right? So let's make it English, and let's choose a voice. I'm going to choose Kendra Neural. So this is from Amazon Polly. All these voices are from Amazon Polly, and this is Kendra Neural. So it's kind of got this fun that those days of like those robo voices are gone. I remember when text to speech first came out, and it couldn't even say cheeseburger. It was like Chaz Ebinger. So I'm calling Kendra. I'm gonna leave her there, and we can make it loop a certain number of times. So that is feeling pretty good. I'm gonna click Save to update the widget, and we want this to be said when somebody calls. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna drag from this trigger. Note this is like a webhook, right? So we're gonna say when an incoming call comes, we're gonna go to this here. Awesome. And that's probably enough to test, isn't it? Don't you think? So the way that these works is you can see that I made 4 changes, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to click publish here. So we're going to publish the flow. It gives us a little bit of warning ahead of time. And now this is ready to use. So I'm going to go back to my number. And I am going to come into my number. And I'm going to scroll down here. And so under the voice and facts section. So When a voice call comes in, when a call comes in, we want to use a studio flow, and we can choose our flow of idea catcher and click save. Awesome. Now I am going to call that number, and I'll put it on speakerphone here.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Here comes
Hello
Kendra.
there. I'd love to hear your wonderful idea. Tell me about it after the beep.
So there's Kendra. It's telling us about the beep. So that's awesome, right? We got that up and running very easily, going through a webhook. And again, that's really rendering TWIML behind the scenes. It works. So now here's the trick. That flow that we built is actually a webhook handler. It actually has a URL. That little menu, this little like select a flow, it's kind of hiding it from you, but it really is just a URL. So what's really happening is when a call comes in and Twilio posts to this URL, our flow returns TWIML. In this case, it's the say TWIML verb, which is very similar to the TWIML that we wrote to send the message. But the low code solution has that hidden away. Now, this is very common in these low code solutions. They abstract away the code generation and all the webhook handling. Okay, so next we want to record what our callers say. So let's go back to our flow. So I'm going to jump back into Studio. So I'm going to click this idea catcher and get back into our flow here. So now we want to record. So I'm going to drag out this record voicemail. We'll drag this out here. Awesome. And let's take a look at its settings. So if I click onto it, we can see that it will stop recording after 5 seconds, or you can make it stop on if somebody pressed the key. Ooh, and 3600, that's 10 minutes. Sorry, that's an hour. 3600 seconds is an hour. And that's more than enough, even for chatty folks who have very detailed ideas, like myself, very chatty. Okay, cool. So we also can transcribe the audio to text. We want that for sure. So I'm going to click that on, and look at this. We have a transcription callback URL. I know what that is. That's a webhook. That is a webhook, isn't it? So, but what is actually going to happen when that transcription comes? I know that I could go up here. I could probably go to this help here and figure that out. But if there was only a tool that we could use that would just allow us to put some random URL there so that we could see the results, so we could capture what it was sent. Wouldn't that be nice? Wait a second. There was something that we used earlier, wasn't there? Do you recall what it was? You want to try and do this yourself? If so, go ahead and pause me and get a web-based URL in here that we can use to see what values are posted to it. Are you ready? You can do this. Pause me. Okay, ready. How'd you do? So the tool that I was thinking of was Bceptor. So I'm going to head over there really quick, jump over to Bceptor again. And I'm going to create a new one called recording, because that's what we're looking at, right? We're looking at this recording thing here. And we have that up and running. So now we know that we have this Bceptor URL. So I've got this. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to come back over here. And in the transcription URL, I'm going to paste the recording, and I'm going to make my own thing up here. We'll say transcription. And let's see. Do we want to play the beep? Yes, we definitely want to play a beep because we said that, right? And we also have a recording status callback. I think we just need the transcription right now, right? We don't really need to have to know when a recording is available. But look, there's another webhook. All right, so I'm going to click save, and then I want to connect these two together. So it says when audio completes, we want it to go to this one. So you can see that if you had more here, you could choose different things to happen when different transitions happen in each of these widgets. Okay, so an incoming call is going to come. It's going to say hello there. It's going to record the voicemail, and that voicemail should be sent to our place. So I'm going to click save, and I'm going to click publish. And now I don't need to go update my number again because it's already set to the flow, right? It's already set to this flow. So it should be working now. So if all is working as planned, when I call this number again, when I call my number and leave a message, we should see a webhook kick off here. Let's do it.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Hello there. I'd love to hear your wonderful idea. Tell me about it after the beep.
Yeah, so I have this idea where I'd like to set up a call line where people could call in and record their ideas. That's my idea. Now, hopefully, I hung up, and hopefully, we should see here in a second. We should see our message has been recorded and it's being transcribed right now. And when the transcription's done, we should get pinged over here if all is working. I'm trying to be patient. There it is. So we got a post to transcription. So I'm going to take a look at that. So I clicked this and it's in the new format. Let's scroll this down here. We can see we got a bunch of stuff that came in. You can see I called that number. Ooh, there's my number. Feel free to call, I guess. And here we go, transcription text. So it says, yes, so I have an idea where I'd like to set up a call line where people call and record their ideas. Yeah, that's my idea. That's pretty great, but that's exactly what I need. So I need that transcription text field that comes across, that's submitted to my webhook. I need that transcription text. That's what I need. Awesome.
So now that we've got a webhook event, we could write any sort of handler that we want. We definitely now have the message has been transcribed event. We can do whatever we want with that event. We could very easily send that text to Discord. Now, to complete our app, we're going to have this event send a text message. Now, I'm excited to show you this as it's super common to want to send a text message from your webhook handler. There are so many. When this one event occurs, text me about it. All those ideas are out there and they're just waiting to be fulfilled. So let's develop this solution locally using the local development tools that we learned about earlier. We now have a transcription webhook event that's happening. And we saw in Bceptor what the format looked like, and we saw what we wanted. We are ready to handle it. We are going to text that transcription to ourselves. Doesn't seem like that big of an application, does it? Now, I could spin up a whole web server to handle this request, but that sure seems like a lot of work for a simple little application. Do you remember this feeling from before? Now, we solved it by using a serverless function on the Netlify platform. Because this sort of one-off handler is very common, Twilio also provides serverless function capabilities. What do you say we get one of these serverless handlers up and running to send our text messages out?
Guess what? I'm going to ask you to install some tools, but they're super handy and should be pretty quick. So the first thing I'd like for you to install is the Twilio CLI, or Command Line Interface. This is very much like what we installed for Netlify. It will let you authenticate and send commands to Twilio from the comfort of your own terminal. I love it. So if you're a homebrew user on a Mac, you can install things using Brew. Check the teacher's notes for that. We're going to use npm to install it. So we're going to say npm install Twilio-CLI, and we're going to do this with a -G, which means it's installed globally and we can run it from wherever we need. Cool. And now we're going to do, much like we did with Netlify, we're going to say Twilio login. And this is going to ask us for our account SID, or a string identifier for our account, for our Twilio account. So let's open that up. Let's jump into here. Let's go back to the home, the console dashboard. So your account SID's here. There's a little copy button here. So I'm going to click that and copy that. I'm going to pop back over to my terminal, paste that there, and then we will go grab the auth token, which is a secret token that you should never let out. You can get rid of it, and I will get rid of it later in case mine ever ends up showing to you here. But you don't want to let that out. That's a secret. So I pasted. There we go. And I am going to call this I'm going to call it my webhook account. I'm going to call it Webhooks. Awesome. The CLI supports plugins, and one of my absolute favorites is the Serverless toolkit. We're going to use it to set up and deploy our function, so let's go ahead and install it. Now, this is in the notes if you want to copy and paste this, but you would do Twilio plugins install, and then at Twilio-labs and plugin-serverless. And if everything is working as planned, you should be able to write Twilio serverless and get some response back. Awesome. So there are the things that we can do. So I am going to create a new Twilio serverless project, and in this directory we're at up here, so there's this directory called code, and I made one called Twilio. There's some light changer code in here that you can look at later. Just kind of a little added bonus here for you. So let's jump into that directory. So we're gonna go cd code Twilio. And then inside of this directory here, what we're going to do is we're going to make a brand new serverless Twilio serverless project. And we're going to use the serverless plugin to do that. So we're going to say Twilio serverless :init, and then you name it. So let's call this idea catcher, right? Because this is the thing that we're going to write to. We're gonna post to this, and then we're gonna make this thing text to us. So we'll do dash dash empty. There's lots of if you don't specify empty, there's like we saw with the studio, there's lots of templates that you can use. I think we're gonna start from scratch because I think it's clearer in the direction that we're headed right now. So this is preparing a new directory, so it'll be all ready for us. And let's go ahead. After it gets we're going to go over into Idea Catcher now. So you'll see up here, there's this Twilio, and we have Idea Catcher here. And let's take a look at what it added. It added some stuff for us. Awesome. So you'll see that there's a folder for functions, and there's one for assets. Let's go ahead and let's make a new file in this functions here. So I am going to click this little plus button here to add a new file into this directory, and I'm going to call it sendtext.js. All right, this is the standard boilerplate that you'll need. It's in the teacher's notes too, if you want to just copy that. So exports.handler, we're going to write a function called handler, and it takes a context, an event object, and a callback. All right, and we will make a function there. Callback is how you complete the function, and it's important because of that asynchronous nature of JavaScript. You can complete the function anywhere, really. So just to make sure that we got things working, I'm going to call it. Now, it's a standard node callback function, so that means that it takes its first parameter is any sort of error that occurred, and we're not going to be expecting any errors with this. And we'll debug. We'll just do my typical, hi, mom. Awesome. So the toolkit allows us to run our own functions locally so that we can test them. So let's spin that up. So to do that, you do Twilio serverless start. Awesome. And you'll see that it now says there's a function available on localhost 3000. And if I go ahead and I click that, I got hi mom. Hi mom. How you doing, mom? All right. And you'll see in the logs, I've got a 200 and it made a get request to send test. Excellent. Now, this server that we have up and running is hot reloadable, just like we saw with NodeMon or NodeMon. This means that you can make a change and it will be applied without you needing to restart the server. So let's add a little console log here. We'll say console.log. We're going to be sending a text here, sending text. Awesome. So now if I go and I refresh my mom page again, I did a command R there, or control R to do a refresh. And if we look back, we'll see that the console log popped out here, and again, another 200s. And awesome. Without needing to restart. Totally speeds up the development cycle. Speaking of which, let's get to quickly developing. Okay, so we need to have our Studio Flow post to our server. Our machine is local. We're going to need to have some way for our flow to be able to see our local server. Do you remember how we did that before? Want to pause me and see if you can somehow get a public URL for this function without deploying it? Okay, Pause me and see if you can remember how to open up the tunnel. Remember, you can go back, and it's okay if you totally didn't grok it the first time. Ready? Pause me. All right, how'd you do? So I was talking about ngrok to open up our tunnel. So I'll open up a new terminal here with the plus, and I'm going to run that again. That was in my downloads directory. My downloads directory, and it's ngrok. There we go. So ngrok http 3000, right? So that was running on port 3000. There we go. And so now we'll see we have this wild looking URL. I'm going to click that, open it up, and it's not for that, it's for /send text, right? So isn't it called send text? Send, oh, I called it send test, but it should be send text. Let's fix that. So if you were following along, like I hope you were, you probably did that too. So you can right click and choose rename, and you can call this send text. I don't know what happens if you do that. Does it restart? Look at that. It restarted with a new thing called send text. I didn't have to restart the server. Awesome. So it's now called send text. And if we're up here, I now have this wonky URL, ngrok URL that's up and running that gets the send text. So now the studio flow can see it. So I'm going to grab that URL, and I'm going to go back to the flow. So over here, studio. I'm going to get back into my idea catcher. And on the record voicemail, we had left the bceptor URL. And now we're going to paste our ngrok URL there. Awesome. So I'm going to click save. And I'm going to publish. And we'll call.
You have a trial account.
I
You
sure
can remove
do.
this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Hello there. I'd love to hear your wonderful idea. Tell me about it after the beep.
So here's my idea. I want to build an app that gathers ideas from people and then texts it to me. Awesome. So let's jump over now. I've hung up. Let's jump over and watch it come in. We should see a post to send text here in a second as that transcription happens. Boom, there it is. Awesome. And if we go over to our ngrok, we should be able to open that up and see that the message came through. All right, so what we were looking for is transcription text. Here we go. Here's my idea. I want to build an app that gathers ideas from people and then texts it to me. That's pretty good, isn't it? Pretty cool. Okay, so let's make sure that we can access that. So in our code, where we're sending the text, the way that those values come across is they're on this second object here called event. So we'll say, let's do one of these. We'll say transcription. And that was event.transcription text. Now, do you want to hear me call back? Do you want me to take that time to call back? Or is there some other way I can do that? So this is the awesome flow that happens, right? So I'm going to go back now. I'm just going to replay this. And we sent that text again. And now we should see in my console log, right? If I switch back over to my console log, we should see there's the transcription thing. And there it is. We did it.
Awesome. We got the Twilio CLI installed and all set up. This will let us interact with our account. And it also has a plugin that allows us to quickly build serverless functions. We got our local server all up and running and opened up a tunnel using ngrok. We're now able to handle the incoming webhook request. We were able to get access to the information, and now we can also replay those requests. That was quite a bit of work. Nice job recalling how to get all those things working together. Now this, what we just did, is a very common flow that you'll be doing the more that you develop webhooks. So it'll only get more familiar as you progress. Why don't we both take a real quick break? I know I need some water. When you come back, we'll wrap up the handler side of the code, and then we'll deploy this function to the cloud. so we don't need to keep our local machines running all the time. Enjoy your well-deserved break. You're doing great. See you soon. Okay, let's write our handler bit. We're going to write some code that texts you the transcriptions when they arrive. Let's do this.
All right, so I am able to get the transcription that's being published from that webhook. We're able to get the transcription back. And so now we want to text it. So the context object here is very handy. It has a handy way to get access to the JavaScript helper library. So what that does is gives you an authenticated client. So we're going to say const client equals context dot get Twilio client. Now here's the thing. We need to be authenticated locally. So we're going to need to provide the toolkit or official account sid and auth token. So I'm going to jump into this .env file here. So see, it's this file labeled .env, and we have two things here in this already. And I'm just going to grab again from the console. I'm going to grab my account sid. And you'll see, and it starts with AC. And this, of course, might look a little bit different as the flow goes. Check the notes. And I'm going to go and grab my auth token. And I'm going to come in here and I'm going to paste it. And I'm going to make myself a note to cancel that because I just showed you my auth token. And that is dangerous because now you could log into my account here and do things on my behalf because you know what that auth token is. So this magic.env file in the serverless toolkit world, what this is our environment variables. So they will be exposed actually on that context object that we were seeing. So we're going to need a couple of things. We're going to need my actual phone number, right? My phone number that I wanted to text, which is 503 4610 234. Please don't call me too late at night. All right, so there's that, and I'm going to put in my Twilio number, this Twilio number that I have here, and again, what is my Twilio number? My Twilio number is right here. This is my trial number. I'll grab this and paste that here. Awesome, and I'm going to save my .env file, and now we can use those. So I'm going to jump back into the syntax. And we're going to, under this sending text, what we'll say is, well, let's move this back up too. All right, so the client, it has access to all the resources. So we can do client.messages. And then what we want to do is we want to create a new message. And what we'll do is we will pass in some values. And so we're going to send a message to me or to you, right? So whatever we put in there for phone number, that's what we're going to do. And then we're going to text that from our trial number, right? So we'll say context.trial number. Now, or not trial, Twilio number. The reason why this is working is that number should be verified, right? So that phone number that we put in, I'm in trial mode. I verified with my phone number, so that's why it will be able to text it. So we have to, from, and we have body. Helper messages are a little intense sometimes. So the body that we want is we want to say that there was a new idea that came in, right? And then we just want to kind of grab what we did before where we got the transcription text, right? So that here's the new idea. So that's the body of the message. Seems pretty good. Maybe you know what we should do? We should also just drop one of those in there. So if I'm going to pop a bulb in there. I like that my burrito is a commonly used Emoji. All right, awesome. It's time to. I think we're good. I don't think we need to say hi to mom anymore. We'll be sending the text. Um, Now, because we didn't put our personal information in here, we could share this file with people and they could just copy it and paste it, right? Like we could put this up on GitHub and somebody could just use it. In fact, this is in the notes and you could just use this code without changing anything except for your personal environment number. Your phone number and your Twilio account and your Twilio number are going to be different than mine, but the code is the same. So that's the power of environment variables. We have the same code in different environments. Now, there's something tricky that we need to be really careful about here. This create call here off of messages. This is asynchronous, and we saw this before. It's promise based, which means it provides functions to return values or errors that will be called when a value arrives or an error occurs, which is a mouthful, I realize. So what we want to do is we want to call the callback only after the message has been sent. Otherwise, it will just be over right away, right? Because this will finish and it will be right over. So we need to put the callback inside of the then. So what we're going to do is we're going to chain off of the promise that's returned. So we're going to say .then, and that's going to return a function, and it's going to return a function that could just say it will be the message, right? The message that was created if it was successful. And what we'll do here is we'll do the callback, and there was no problems, and we can return a message. We say sent message, and that message object that comes back has an identifier as well. So let's put this on a separate line. Let's make that a little bit more friendly. You can do that all in one line like that. So let's see. So we're going to have a function. The then is going to return. The then is going to expects a function that takes whatever the returned value was if it was successful, and then it will run this function. And that's when we want the function to end. We don't want it to end beforehand. So that's, again, this is that asynchronous behavior. So we'll put a semicolon here at the end. And then we are going to come and we're going to catch this. And the catch also expects if there is an error. The catch expects if there is an error that you say something about it. So this is a great place to do the callback and just pass the error into it. Okay, so let's walk this one more time. So we're going to use the context to get an authenticated Twilio client, and it's going to use values from our environment, our account SID, and our auth token to make sure that we're authenticated properly. And then it's going to, for this authenticated client, it's going to make a new message. It's going to create a brand new message, and it's going to send it to a phone number, our phone number, the mobile number that you registered with, and it's going to send it from our trial number, right? That's the trial number that we have in there. It's going to pass across the transcription text that was on the event that came from the request, and if that were successful, we're going to say the function is over and no error happened, and then we'll just write something out. It's not expecting anything. And if there is a catch, if there is a problem, we are going to call that callback with the error. We could put some logging in here too. Why don't we do that? We'll say console.log, and we'll just do a sent message, and we'll do message.sid. And again, that's a string identifier. And if there is an error, we'll do console.error, and we'll say, uh-oh, and then we'll output that error. Cool, or at least the string version of that error. Awesome. Okay, I am going to clear things down here. I have that saved. Let's run this locally first. Since we were just doing our development thing there, I had stopped my server. So again, that's Twilio Serverless start. So that will start the local server here. So again, I was in the wrong directory. That's what that means. So I need to get in my idea catcher directory, and I will run that again. That was the up and down arrows to get back to the previous command. So Twilio Serverless start. All right, here we go. So This is what was running before. I still have my ngrok running, and my flow is still pointing to things. So that means I should be able to go back to my my ngrok and just go ahead and do another replay. And I should receive a text message. And look at that, sent from my Twilio trial account. There's a new idea, and it gathers ideas from people and texts it to me. Awesome. Cool. So we have the text working. We have done our local development flow. And now we want to be able to not have to run this on our computers, right? Like we don't want to keep our computer up and running all the time. So we're going to deploy it. And the way that we do that is very, very easily. We say Twilio serverless deploy. And it's building up everything we need here. And you'll notice that what it's going to do is it's going to take the name of our project and put some extra stuff at the end to make it unique. So it's got this little 4-digit number, and it's got this .dev because that's the environment that you are in. So by default, it puts you in the development environment. So let's go ahead. It's deployed. Believe it or not, this is up and running. We could actually hit that, but I'm just going to grab this. And I'm going to pop back over to my flow. And jump back in here. You feeling my flow? And I'm going to go into record voicemail. And I am going to, now the transcription URL is an actual real live hosted Elastic in case I get a whole bunch of ideas, which I hope that I do. I'm going to click save. And that is publicly accessible. It's now running on the server. And so, the final test, let's go ahead and give our number a call.
You have a trial account. You can remove this message at any time by upgrading to a full account. Press any key to execute your code.
Hello there. I'd love to hear your wonderful idea. Tell me about it after the beep.
Yeah, I have an idea to make my dog lamp light up in Morse code whenever I receive a new idea that gets transcribed. Wouldn't that be great? And I should, just about any second now, I should get a message with a very strange idea about sending Morse code over a dog lamp. I think I might actually write that. Oh, there, got it. And it transcribed it exactly right. Awesome. We got it deployed, and now we can shut our computers off. Now, you might have noticed that this was deployed to dev. I know that we talked about that, but you can also deploy to dev or staging, and then you can deploy to production. And that way you can develop as a team in one place if you needed to. There's more on that in the notes if you're interested in it, but they're just different environments. So just keep that in mind. You can have different environments hosted up there. And with that, we did it. That is awesome.
Did you see how the webhook skills that you've picked up are fairly universal? It's pretty neat, right? I hope you're feeling confident in your ability. First, we were able to provide a handler for the lifecycle hook of an incoming text message to our number. We did this with a static TWIML bin. But remember, this is a webhook. As long as we returned valid TWIML, we could do anything. We didn't end up using the body of the text message that was sent to us, but we definitely could have. Like, for instance, I could make it so that if someone texted my number a color, it could change the dog color light. Like, for instance, if I type blue. There we go. It responds to the incoming message. And I deployed that. It's a simple serverless function. It's in the notes, and it responds to an incoming text message. We also used a no-code solution to answer an incoming call and record a message. What the tool did for us was to deploy and return the necessary TWIML code to render the application. As more and more of these no-code solutions start popping up, look for how they're making use of webhooks. You can impress your friends you could be like, well, actually, that's just a webhook. Actually, never say that. Never say, well, actually, it's not a good look. we saw how the debugging tools like bScepter and ngrok worked to capture what was posted from the webhook. The replay feature saves a ton of time, so I'm glad that you've got that in your tool belt. And we also got to use another serverless function. Those things are awesome. Little snippets of code that you don't need to manage. They're elastic, meaning they scale up and down automatically, and almost all of the serverless providers give a very generous free tier. So until your application gets very popular, which it will, you don't need to pay anything at all. These are great for little one-off scripts like webhook handlers. You did it. You made it to the end of this course. Nice work. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I know I did. I hope you now have a ton of ideas that you can't wait to implement with webhooks. Remember, if you run out of ideas, go explore some no-code automation sites like IFTTT or Zapier. There are tons of great ideas there. I can't wait to see what you build. Make sure to let me know about it. I've spun up a number that's similar to what we built together. I'll use it to capture your feedback on this course. I use the transcription webhook to add your feedback to a Google spreadsheet. I hope that you're proud of your new skills. Ooh, that reminds me.
Send them in.
I have something pretty important to talk with you about. Something serious. The power that you wield is needed. Now, more than ever. We are living in some dark times. And most of our time is spent online in virtual worlds. Worlds that are governed by the laws of code. Somebody writes that code. You're gonna write that code. You know, a kid's uncle once famously said, "With great power comes great responsibility." I guess that's just really a roundabout way of me asking you, is the code that you write going to be used for good or not? It's your choice, really. So I'm asking you to take a vow. I want you to write code that unlocks hope, power, and freedom for all of humanity. I'm asking you to become an operator. I want you to join our quest. I need your help to line?
Save the cloud?
Right, of course. We need your help to save the cloud. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So when should I call you?
No need to call us. We'll call you.
Oh, right. I'm still waiting for them to call me back. They got tired of me calling and calling to see if I landed it. Those Hollywood folks sure stick to their principles. I hope I get it, because I love that Twilio Quest game. Have you played it yet? It's super addicting. It has awesome content for those just getting started and those who have been there for a long time. It has a built-in dev environment, fun side quests like contributing to open source. It covers JavaScript, PHP, and Python, and there are new updates all of the time. And OMG, the original soundtrack. Also, I've got a serious robo-crush on Cedric. He's super adorable. I can't recommend it enough. And finally, if you enjoyed this course, please let others know about it. I'm sure they'll thank you for hooking them up. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you real soon.